Check, 1, 2, let's just make sure everybody can hear me. Hello, how's everybody doing? We've got a couple of repairs I want to share with you today, but want to make sure the feed is going out well and that everybody can see and hear me okay. So if you would, just confirm that for me in the chat and then I can move forward. Yes, everybody can see and hear me. This is good. Things are starting to work on a regular basis. That's a little scary. I see my friends and administrators and moderators in the chat there. John Huckabee and Douglas Biggers are moderators today, the ones I see. And for everybody else tuning in, thank you for watching. I have to move very, very quickly because in about 2 hours, I've got my pest control guy coming over. So if we're still in the middle of doing this, which I imagine we will be, we'll have to go to intermission while that gets taken care of, and then I can continue on. So that's 2 hours away. Let me tell you the story about this computer that you see right here. This is the Silverstone computer that you saw me build 4 years ago in July of 2013. I actually had to build 5 identical machines, and they've been running perfectly without any problems, as you would expect. Customer moved from one location to another, and as a result of that, now they need wireless. So they're in their new place. I order a Wi-Fi card off of Amazon, which I think I still have in there. Yeah, it's in here. Let me just pull it out of here and I'll show it to you. This is the same Wi-Fi card that I use on my streaming computer, although I almost can't tell the difference if I'm wired or wireless when I use this card. This is a, if the camera will focus on it, come on, TP-Link N900. It's about a $40 Wi-Fi PCI Express card. I've been very happy with its performance, and when I put it in the computer, which, you know, this should be an in and out job. I should be able to get to the customer's location, parts on hand, open the case, slap in the Wi-Fi card, and get out of there. That didn't happen. So let me just pour myself a drink. I need more than Coke. Every single time it gets to be the holiday season, my phone rings off the hook. I've got another repair after this. I've got 2 more repairs after that. I still have this build over here to finish. That build over there has to be finished. The Zynos build still has to be finished. And then everything I've already filmed still has to be edited. So things are a little bit stressful. On top of that, it looks like the build I'll be doing with my niece will be on Friday, so watch for that. That'll be a Ryzen build in a mini ITX. So anyway, too much information too fast? It's coming at you fast here today because I got a lot to get done. I want to demonstrate to you, I want you to see what I saw. Because in all of my years of working on computers, I have never, ever witnessed anything like this before. And here's hoping it'll do for you what it did for me. What I'm going to do, just to ensure everything's honest, I'm going to grab my Windows 7 installation DVD, which I have back here, and we're going to do a fresh, clean install of Windows 7 Professional. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Windows 7 Home or Windows 7 Ultimate. We're just going to use Windows 7 Professional because that's what this customer has on their machine. Let me put that back here. And this is the first thing we're going to do right now, is just do a nice clean Win 7 install so we know that the problem we experience has nothing to do with software, that we're having a hardware problem. I've got a spare hard drive hanging out because I don't want to erase the customer's data. So this is a great diagnostic. You know, whenever you're having a bizarre computer problem, and the first thing you have to determine is, am I having a hardware problem or a software problem? So just get a spare hard drive laying around. Doesn't have to be a fast hard drive. We're going to disconnect the customer's hard drive and simply just plug in the spare. It's just that fast and easy for a test like this. And we want to make sure we have the monitor hooked up, power's hooked up, power switch is in the on position. I'm going to grab the keyboard and mouse off of the streaming computer that I use to type to you guys with. So we're going to put that over here, grab my Wi-Fi dongle, and we'll plug that in. I'll just plug it in the front. And let's power it on. And we're going to go and hit, let's see, we'll hit F12. That'll give us the boot menu. I'll just keep hitting F12 till I get the boot menu, and I'm going to select the silicon power USB stick right there. Now, for those of you wondering what this build consists of, this is a gigabyte. The motherboard model number is GAZ87MD3H. And the motherboard I'm going to be, I'm getting way ahead of myself. Hold on. I'm ordering a new motherboard for it. The problem with this is either a motherboard or a CPU, but I'm going to show you here. We're going to go through just a standard Win 7 install. The reason I know it's a motherboard or CPU is because I've already removed the RAM modules and rotated them around, and the behavior still is the same. It's unlikely, although I haven't tested the power supply, and it's unlikely anything plugged into the board. The only thing plugged into the board would be front port audio, the front port USB, the front port's card reader, and the fans. That's all that's plugged in the board. We're going to do custom, and we're just going to erase everything on this main hard drive. But remember, there's only one hard drive hooked up, so I don't have to worry about accidentally erasing my customer's drive. There's a method to my madness, and why you see, exactly what I'm doing if you repeat it. Every detail, like the little details that there's no other hard drives hooked up, just that one, reduces the chance of any mistakes. And mistakes where you accidentally erase your customer's hard drive are bad mistakes. Those are bad. So I'm going to just delete these two partitions. I go to drive options and delete that partition, and then it's just going to leave us with the one. We'll delete that one too. Click OK, and then it just shows one drive of unallocated space, 700 gigs. That's us. And hit next, and just let Windows 7 do its thing. Now, once Windows 7 is completed, I'm not going to download all the updates and drivers. It's unnecessary. All I'm going to try and do is put the network card driver on, and hopefully the show will start and your eyes will get really big. And then you guys will all tell me what the problem is, because after all, you guys have all the answers. Actually, some of you might know. What I think is happening is I think the motherboard chipset has been damaged in some way, shape, or form, or the channels in which that the CPU talks to the PCI Express bus is damaged. And I don't know how long it's been damaged. I don't know if it's been damaged since day one or if it's something that recently happened. The computer runs fine. The customer has had no complaints with it. The only problem is customer moved. The new place doesn't have a wired connection anymore. And all we were doing was adding a Wi-Fi card. I've tried numerous Wi-Fi cards. It doesn't make a difference. The same result occurs. So, I think something on the motherboard chipset is bad. Now, there was a new BIOS for the motherboard. I think it was 3 or 4 versions newer. I put that on the board, flashed okay, no problem. Works, no difference in how it works. As I mentioned, I took the RAM out, rotated the RAM around, ran mem test for several hours. It went through 3 out of 4 complete passes with no errors. So definitely not a memory problem. And again, with a clean install of Windows, we know it's not a software problem. So that just leaves a few remaining pieces of hardware. It's almost impossible for me to go and get a board or a CPU that are this old. We have another machine they don't use, which we could use for donor parts, but even then, we still have a machine that doesn't work. And we're going to have to do something with it. So my thought was, let's just leave that. The machine they're not using today doesn't mean they don't want to use it tomorrow. And this company has always been, I don't want to say secretive, but not the most forthcoming with their intentions, and oftentimes blindsides me with jobs. And this was one. This was supposed to happen in the first week of December, and of course they waited until Christmas Eve to call me. So that's just the nature of the business, of any service that you offer. if you're thinking of getting in the business, you have to expect that the time where you want to relax and vacation when everybody else is vacationing, that's, especially as we approach the end of the year, that's when they take all the stuff they've been putting off all year and they want it done now while they have time away from work, which makes you, the service guy, have no vacation. You have to work harder than ever. But then once all that's through and everybody's back to work, then in theory, then you have your vacation because then everybody stops calling. That tends to be the way it works. It's feast or famine. You're really super busy or you have nothing. So I'm not complaining. I'm just saying this is the nature of the beast. Now, as far as I know, there was no damage to the board whatsoever. Again, the customer was never complaining of any problems. Everything's been working fine. This is a critical machine. This is the person in the company that writes all the payroll checks on this computer, and without this computer, they can't write payroll checks. So the demand and need for this computer right away, as you can imagine, is pretty important on not just one person's list, including me. This is how I get paid too. The fact that they've been in the process of moving means the computer's already been down several days during the move. So that means the work that's normally done daily on this machine has now been built up over about a week of work has not been done. It's just piling up, which is adding pressure to the owner of the computer to get it back as quickly as possible now that they're in their new location and they can get caught up with everything that they had to put off during the move. You see how all the stress builds up? And they take all that stress and they go, here, this is yours now. It's very similar to a fireman. Man, we got a fire. You need to get over here, stop everything you're doing and get over here now. When stuff like this happens, other video projects have to be set aside, other builds have to be set aside, and everything has to be triaged or prioritized based on the fact that there's just one of me. And I've got customers calling me that I haven't heard from all year, and now they want me out this week. And obviously, because I haven't heard from them all year, whereas these folks are regular customers, I take care of my regular customers first. Also, the other customer isn't completely down. I guess they have to reboot their computer 5 or 6 times throughout the day, but they're running. So you have to make these sort of these tough decisions over who you're going to help and how you decide. Is it driven by money? Is it driven by whose need is more important? It's a good problem to have, right? I mean, it beats sitting around with nothing to do all day. We're still installing Windows 7 here. Just a moment to say hello to everybody in the chat. James Hughes, Catherine Anna Hauserman is our moderator and one of our many moderators in the chat today. Ideally, you guys should be seeing the feed in 1080. Unknown Clan says hello. Matthew Moore, Official Tech Gamer, Kenny Roberts, James Cusack, Robert Nemcheski, Steve Bennett, Sal Gasper, Jakey Pierce, Robert Echera, Joseph Neal, Mark Bradshaw, Rusty Shackelford, Ryan James, Mike April, Liam Sims, DJ Daniel Company, Gary McGraw, Hidden Room Studio, Bobby Winchester, Ridia.704, Devin Lethbridge, Floyd's Ghost, Christopher Raybone, Hellgas Trooper, Transport with Iden, DDLP, Stephen Bullock, Rody Drones, Nick 13. It is 443 of you. So for those of you that I didn't mention, hello. Thank you for joining me on this. What's today? I don't even know anymore. Today's the 30th? I can't remember. I do expect a couple of interruptions throughout the day. I'm going to lower the brightness on this monitor because I see how dark it's become. Let's go to the menu and go to brightness. And let's turn that brightness way, way down, and hopefully that'll fix the lighting issue. Again, the camera sees this as a light source. Turn it all the way down. Now that should be much, much better. We're about to do our first reboot. Hopefully it'll boot to the hard drive. Let's see. Sometimes it tries to boot to the USB again, which it is trying to boot to the USB. So I'm just going to turn it off and unplug the USB. Turn it back on. When I said USB, I meant flash drive. So many words. Word salad. All right, let's see if it's going to boot to the hard drive this time. Yes. All right. That's what I wanted to see. And now it'll complete the Windows 7 install. So I'm really hoping this is going to behave the way I'm pretty confident it will. It's done it twice for me. This is one of the strangest problems I have ever seen. So remember, I've been doing this professionally since 1991. So you can do the math on how many years that is. And I've never seen a problem like this. Now there's been situations where there's problems I've never seen before, but are sort of blue screen errors. Well, the blue screen error is mostly the same. It's sure, it may be a specific error number I've never seen, but the diagnostic process and how to repair it are all pretty similar. This problem is sort of like, well, I don't even know where to start. This is clearly something going on with the hardware. Still completing the installation. And it is frustrating. It is extraordinarily frustrating that something as simple as adding a Wi-Fi card. My plans, look, we're going to order the Wi-Fi card from Amazon. As soon as I get it, I'm going to make an appointment to come to your new location. We're going to get your computer set up. The movers just left them in a pile with the cables. I will set that up for you. You show me where you want them. I'll set them up. We'll slap the Wi-Fi card in. We'll get your Wi-Fi router configured, back up and running, and I'm out of there. I should be in and out in an hour, tops. 3 hours later, I say, you know what? I got to just grab this computer and take it back to my place and diagnose it because I'm at my wit's end. And it always has to happen with a customer who's in the most pressure, right? I've got to have it. I've got to have it now. This is really, really urgent. And it's just a standard procedure. There's nothing special about it. And the customer had no complaints, no issues with this computer since it was built. Not a single issue. So you can imagine the expression on my face and how upset I was, not only knowing it wasn't going to get done and the customer wasn't going to be happy, but I've got to make the trip back and forth again, which is not fun in this traffic in Phoenix. We're still wrapping up here. We're almost there. And then I've got another machine we're going to do a quick upgrade on. Ideally, it'll be quick. But I want to show you this first. I went on Amazon and I bought a new motherboard, new CPU, an M.2. Since this has an old Vertex 3 SSD, we're going to go M.2. And this has 8 gigs of DDR3. We're going to go 16 gigs DDR4 on the new board. So just 4 parts, RAM, CPU, memory, and M.2. Ordered it at Amazon at 10 o'clock this morning. And it's supposed to be delivered anytime now. So if there's a knock on the door or a doorbell, you hear the dogs barking, ideally that'll be Amazon with my parts. Thank goodness Amazon has that free same-day delivery with Amazon Prime. I didn't even know Amazon would deliver free same-day because I always do my ordering at night, so it's never an option. This is the first time I've ever ordered anything in the morning. And I'm just delighted to see that I'd be able to get these parts today and hopefully have this machine up and running tonight so I can bring it back to the client tomorrow. That's the plan. So, we're still rebooting. Yeah, not everything Amazon sells has next day. I actually selected a different CPU than the one I originally wanted. I went with one a step lower. And for this customer, it won't really matter very much. But the one that was a step lower is available today. The other one would be Friday. And we don't have time for that. And like I said, the customer won't know the difference either way. The customer is not gaming. The customer's trying to get work done. And since we have to fix it, we might as well make it a little bit better in the process. And of course, while I'm doing this, my phone is ringing. I'm getting messages and everything else is going on. And I'm just trying to maintain a focus on one thing at a time. And everybody has to just wait their turn. We're going to skip the password. We're going to skip the product key. We'll use recommended settings. It doesn't matter what time zone we're in. And then we'll be at the desktop here in just a moment. A lot of people, when they ask for technical support, you know, it's something they want to fix themselves, they come onto the Facebook fan page and they have a problem. One of the very common things that we say to people is, you need to determine if what you're having is a software problem or a hardware problem. This is how you do that. You just grab a spare hard drive laying around and reinstall your operating system fresh and clean on a spare hard drive. If you don't have a spare hard drive, you can buy one very inexpensively for under $60. Or you can take a program like Acronis and image your hard drive to like an external drive. Verify that your image is good. Then you can wipe out your hard drive, do whatever you want to it, and then when you're done, you can restore your image back. That way you don't have to swap any drives out. So there's more than one way to go around doing this, but you do have to have those parts. If you don't have those parts laying around, then it makes sense to take it to a technician. A lot of times a tech is going to swap parts out, and if you have to go and buy each individual part to swap out, you may very well end up with enough parts to build a whole new computer by the time you're done. Well, you can fix any problem. It may not make sense for you to fix certain types of problems. It may be more financially sound and faster, depending on the problem, to take it to a tech who can get through it faster and has things you don't have, diagnostic tools in general, and spare parts that you may not have. And it may not make sense for you to buy those things unless you plan on doing it for a living. So just keep that in mind. Just because we offer free support on the Facebook fan page doesn't mean it would make sense necessarily for you to fix this specific problem you're having. Specifically, it happens a lot with laptops. When there's a hardware problem with a laptop, in almost all cases, if it's a hardware problem, it really should go back to the laptop manufacturer or authorized service dealer for that repair, because laptops have all proprietary parts, except for maybe the RAM and hard drive. The rest of it's all proprietary. And access to those parts will be limited, and working on it is extraordinarily difficult, especially for a novice. It can be done, but it will be time-consuming and more than likely expensive, and an exercise in patience and frustration. All right, so we have the desktop up. And I use this little program to detect the network card. We're just gonna, all I want right now is the wired network card hooked up. So I'm gonna plug in the flash drive again and pull the utility off of there. I've talked about this utility in the past. It's called 3DP Net. I think there's probably a newer version than what I have, but this will do what I need it to do. And 3DP Net is a freeware tool that if you download an OS like Windows 7 or Windows Vista or Windows 8, it doesn't see your network card driver, which, by the way, not a problem in Windows 10. It's amazing how many people are hitting their heads against the wall trying to get Windows 7 to work on brand new hardware. Big mistake. If you have brand new hardware, you definitely want Windows 10. Makes your life easier. The Windows 10 is optimized to take care of optimizing that hardware, recognizing it, and fully utilizing it. Windows 7, it's all a bunch of patchwork to make it work, if it'll work. And I would suggest just buying an older computer. If you really want to hold on to Windows 7, buy an older computer. Best advice. An older computer that was designed for Windows 7. All right, so here's the 3DPNet software. Let me disconnect that flash drive before I forget. Let's get that, eject that. Good, thank you. All right, I'm going to execute this. What this does is it's going to extract all the files onto the C drive into a directory on the C drive, which I have to remember to delete later if this was going back to the customer, because the customer could play with it and end up hosing their system. So I don't like to leave tools, literal tools or software tools, laying around where the customer who may be curious goes, "What's this?" and starts messing around with stuff. This has drivers for both wired and wireless cards. It's going to auto detect it. It's very fast. It's very easy to use. I really, really like this utility. Never had to use it on Windows 10. So right now it's loaded the 3DPNet software. It's extracted it and then started the software. And it says, we see you've got a Realtek RTL 8111C card. And I click on that and I click yes. And here's where the interesting fun begins. I'm going to click next. And I just want to stand, you know what, I'm going to stand over here. I want you to see what happens. This should be pretty standard driver installation. When we're done, I should be able to plug the network into it, start downloading updates. Oh, it actually updated it. Good. All right. Didn't do that before, but that's all right because it was hardwired before and it was working. All right, so now we've got a network card driver on there. I'm going to shut this down. And then as soon as this shuts down, I'm going to install this. Now, this motherboard only has 2 PCI Express slots. This motherboard has 2 PCI slots, which most motherboards don't even have today. So that's, even though it was just 4 years ago that it was built, that's just how quickly this technology moves. This was probably one of the last motherboards to have PCI. I mean, there still might be some out there, but I'm trying to think if I've seen one. Does this one have PCI? No. The 370 chipset certainly don't have PCI. Anyway, so I've got 2 PCI Express slots. One closest to the CPU that, you know, a video card would go in, and then one is the last slot. So I'm going to start with the last slot. Just plug that straight on, and let's secure it with a screw. All right, and then we can just get these out of our way. And turn this back on, fire it back up. And now we'll load the driver. We're going to attempt to load the driver for the brand new Wi-Fi card. It has Windows 7 64-bit drivers. Well, I see somebody's contributed 10 pounds to the channel. I'm sorry I missed what happened there. Somebody could let me know. I'd like to give them a shout out and say thank you. Carrie, I thought you would have trade accounts with suppliers rather than use Amazon. I don't sell parts. My customers buy their parts. I don't deal with it. When you start selling parts, you have to start collecting taxes and filing quarterly tax reports that you pay to the state. It's a nightmare. And then customers will complain, how come you're more money than this other place? So just let the customers go buy their parts wherever they want to buy them. I don't need to get involved in all that extra paperwork. Donation was from M. Rescort 1969. Thank you, Douglas. Thank you, M. Rescort 1969, for the contribution to the channel. Really appreciate that. Here we've got device driver was not successfully installed. So here's what I'm going to do. In the optical drive, I've got the little driver disk. So we're going to put the driver disk in. And we're going to try and load this driver for this Wi-Fi card, which is all I was trying to do. This is all started because of this simple action. Run auto run, that's fine. It's going to run right off the CD. Here's our card. It says install driver and utility. I never want the utility, but that option says driver and utility or manual. That's my only 2 choices. Once the software installs or starts to install, then it will ask if I want the driver only. Right here, it says install TP-Link wireless configuration utility and driver. This is redundant because Windows has its own wireless configuration utility that I'm familiar with. I hate it when companies want to change something that is a standard. So we just want the driver, and we're going to click next and install. And I want to stand over here because I want you to see the screen. Mr. Escort 1969 is the one who contributed 10 pounds. Well, thank you, Mr. Escort 1969. Bob Barnes has contributed 10 pounds. Thank you, Bob Barnes. Oh, here we go. See the screen? Look at the screen. What is going on? What is that? Is that the spirits trying to cross over? We're here. What is going on? Transport with Aiden, 2 pounds contributed. Hi, Carrie. Good luck. Thank you. Carrie, bad BIOS chip. Well, I mean, I flashed the BIOS. It flashed just fine. Could it be the onboard GPU? Well, the onboard GPU is built into the CPU, so that would be the CPU. Have you tried the online driver? Yes, same problem. Maybe a cold solder joint or something shorting. Yeah, maybe. But where? Probably the CPU is dead. Maybe. Video took a dump. Yes, it certainly did. "7 days from now, we're all going to die." That's good. It's a bad VGA port. What does a bad VGA port have to do with installing a Wi-Fi driver? It doesn't matter if I use the other PCI Express. IRQ conflict. Well, that's what I'm thinking. Not an IRQ conflict, but a PCI bus error. And the PCI bus is controlled through the motherboard chipset and the CPU. Is it compatible with Windows 7? Yes. The antenna fell off. No, it didn't. Onboard chipset front side bus. Yes, I think you are on the right track, my friend. Conflicting drivers would cause a blue screen of death. Well, there's no other drivers. Come on, Brytech. We have another fellow technician here in the chat. Brytech, what do you think is causing this video issue after installing a Wi-Fi driver? Robert Palsma. Hi, Robert. Rob? Is that Rob? Try a different PCIe. This motherboard only has 2 PCIe's, and I've tried them both already. I've also tried a different Wi-Fi card, and I tried a PCI Wi-Fi card. Instead of PCIe, I went with PCI. Same problems. It's not the network card. Well, that much I know. It's a brand new network card. So that's it. That's what it does. Nothing I can do. And I'm really glad I got to show you this, because even reset, when I'm pushing reset, the board will not reset. Oh, wait a minute. There it goes. Finally. All right. Could you use a USB Wi-Fi card, they want to know. Probably, but the customer doesn't have any room above the computer to put a Wi-Fi card, and if we put a little tiny one in there, the reception probably won't be very good, and then I'm going to have issues with why everything's running so slow. You can actually see this Silverstone Temjin case build. I actually filmed this build about 4 years ago. It's still there on my channel. So it's interesting. Like I said, the customer had no complaints. Everything's been running just fine, no problem. No, computer stays on 24/7 every single day. There's no problems with heat, no problems with dust. Brightech is just joining us. So Brian, what's happened is this is a brand new clean install of Windows. Right here I've got a spare hard drive, and what you've missed is me just showing the audience I'm doing a fresh, clean Windows 7 install. As soon as the install is finished, I install the drivers for the Wi-Fi card, and then the screen does that. There's a PCI Express Wi-Fi card, brand new. It's one I use myself. I'm very happy with it. It's compatible with Windows 7. Customers had no complaints. The customer was living in a home where this was a wired computer, and now their new home doesn't have any wired connection. So the plan was I was just going to come over, install a Wi-Fi card, and get out of there. I was not expecting all of this to happen. When I go to install the driver for the Wi-Fi card, lots of strange things happen. Now that it's given us that funky screen, if we go in the device manager and say, what's going on here? Let's go to the device manager here. And you will see the Wi-Fi card is detected. It shows the TP-Link 450 megabit wireless end adapter with an exclamation point. If I go to driver and I say uninstall this driver, click OK. It doesn't matter what driver I use. It doesn't matter if I go to Snappy Driver Installer. It doesn't matter if I go to TP-Link and download the latest driver, or if I use the driver on the CD. And in fact, it even did the same error, the same screen, when I installed the Ethernet driver, which is why I did that first for you guys. Although in all fairness, when I did it before, I still had the Wi-Fi card plugged in. So it's something related to the PCI Express bus. In fact, like I said, even using an older PCI wireless card, it won't load the driver. So I'll show you what happens. We go back to Device Manager again. Actually, no. Let's go back to the disk, the driver disk. Here on the DVD, we'll hit Auto Run. Install the disk, install the driver. Now this time it probably won't wig out the screen. It only seems to do that on the initial install. I want the driver only. Click Next, click Install. Let's see what happens this time. I think it'll finish this time, but the card won't run, and it'll have like an exclamation point. Brian says, I see a lot of yellow exclamation points. Brian, the customer's computer's been running fine without any problems. So I'm trying to determine if it's a hardware or a software problem. So of course the customer's computer has all the Windows 7 updates, all the drivers, and no yellow exclamation points. Go to install the Wi-Fi card, that screen happens. So what I've done is I've taken a spare hard drive, installing Windows 7 fresh and clean, and then trying to install the Wi-Fi drivers. I don't need to install any other drivers because I can't get past this error regardless. It's unrelated. So if I went through installing all the chipset drivers and downloading all the Windows 7 updates, we'd still be right back where we are right now. So here it has finished the install, but you'll see there's no Wi-Fi option down here. So we go back into the device manager. Let's go back under System, Device Manager, and you'll see that the network adapter doesn't even appear. It's just not here. This is so frustrating. So let's hit refresh, see what we've got. Now the TP-Link shows up with an exclamation point, and if we look at what the error is, it says the drivers for this device are not installed, code 28. But we can reboot this and we can reinstall drivers and we'll get code 32, we'll get, I think, code 18. It's almost different on every reboot or on every driver install. So if I go to the driver, uninstall the driver, delete the driver, and then let's reboot. Remove all other cards. There are no other cards. Do you see any other cards? There's no other cards on this. I've tried 2 different wireless network cards, and even the onboard Ethernet controller gave me the same error on a clean install of Windows 7. So something to do with the network cards. Mark Cresswell's contributed 10 pounds. Thank you for your contribution, Mark. Try it with the utility installed. Well, that's just being superstitious. When I try different cards, they're from other manufacturers, including the hardwired Ethernet card, the other PCI, not PCI Express, but PCI wireless card, which is made by D-Link, and now the PCI Express card made by TP-Link. They all do the same behavior when it comes to installing the driver. So distracting yourself by installing a needless utility is a pointless exercise in futility. So if we look at, here we go, device driver software not successfully, network driver. Let's do this again. We can try to install the driver manually. We can go to, add the My Computer icon so I can get to this quicker. We can go to the device manager, and then we can say we want to install the driver. So here it says there's an unknown network controller. Double click on that, click driver, update driver, browse My Computer, and then we're going to browse to the optical drive. So My Computer, DVD, that's the card, driver files, Windows 7 64-bit, click OK, click Next. Now it's installing those drivers manually rather than using the software. Watch the screen. Just completely blanked out. So there's something going on with the PCI, with the bus, with the lanes that go to the PCI Express and PCI slots. So and the behavior on this is just very, very bizarre. I've never witnessed anything like it. Because this computer, you know, the owner of this computer has pretty simple needs. They want to just get some business done. They write checks with this computer, they do payroll, they do all kinds of business with this computer. So we're happy with onboard video. It's a pretty simple build. It only comprises about 7 parts, right? You've got your case, power supply, motherboard, CPU, RAM, optical drive, solid state drive. That's it. That's 7 parts. There's not a whole lot to diagnose here. All we were trying to do was add a Wi-Fi card to what was otherwise a perfectly fine working machine. So, you know, it's a really nice case. It's certainly worth keeping the case and upgrading the motherboard. And the problem is that this customer's under a lot of pressure. They're already several days behind work. I thought I was just going to come in, give them their internet access and leave. And now here I am with their machine and they're still unable to do their work. There's a lot of pressure on me to get this done quickly. But it doesn't make sense to just patch, you know, to just try and patch something together only to have them call me when they're in a worse situation, when it fails again. So I've recommended a new motherboard, new CPU, new RAM, and we're going to change out that Vertex 3 SSD for an M.2 Samsung 850 EVO. So that's the plan. Do you have a spare CPU you could try on that board? No, I don't. No, not one that's this recent. Most of the spare CPUs I have are, you know, they're going to be several generations behind. I will tell you what the CPU is here in just a moment. We'll look it up on the specs. We'll wait for it to reboot here. But once again, customer had no complaints. Customer's been happy with the computer ever since it was built in 2013. Never had a single repair, ever. So I don't know if this has been a problem out of the box because we've never plugged anything into the PCI bus before. Or is this a problem that's new and it's going to get worse? That's the thing that scares me the most on a mission-critical machine. Brian says, I think it's a software issue. Well, Brian, here's what I've got to ask you. How can you take the exact same motherboard, the exact same CPU? Remember, there's 5 identical systems. And 2 of the other ones have Wi-Fi cards, no problem. How do you explain that? It's the exact same parts. The only difference between the machines is their behavior. So you can't phone that one in, Brian. You're going to have to, come on. It's a clean install of Windows. There's no software to go wrong. It's a brand new install of Windows. No drivers, nothing. It's clean. I just missed another contribution. Can someone tell me somebody's contributed $20 to the channel. I want to give them a shout out. Nick Fail has contributed $20 to the channel. Thank you, Nick. Yes, I've flashed the BIOS on the computer, even though the other computers still have the older BIOS and they're running fine. I've swapped the RAM. It doesn't change the behavior. I've run memtest 86. It flies through memtest 86 without any problems. I've run Prime 95 on it for several hours. It crunches Prime 95 without any problems. It never even exceeds more than 60 degrees Celsius on the hardware monitor software. The CPU never exceeds, like, I think the hottest I saw was 63 Celsius. I mean, it's crazy cool. Okay, CPU didn't save the changes I made. Remember, I put the My Computer icon on the desktop. It's not there anymore. Let's do it again. No, this is most definitely not a software problem. That much I know for a fact. Let's go see this. Processor is an Intel Core i5 4430 at 3 gigahertz. And we've got 8 gigs of DDR3 memory. So again, an Intel Core i5 4430. You know, that's a CPU that came out about 4 years ago. It fits right along with the time this computer was built. I don't have any spare CPUs to swap out, unfortunately. It could be the CPU, but I'm thinking it's the motherboard. And again, system has been running 100%. Customers never had a complaint, never needed a repair. Let's go back to Device Manager, and let's try and install the driver again. Let's see what happens now. Tell you what, let's uninstall the driver first. Just delete the driver. And then let's shut it back down. Once again, I've got a PCI Wi-Fi card back here. This the customer had laying around, and they said, what is this? Because they're moving and they found all this stuff laying around. And this is from a long, long time ago. Their previous technician must have installed this back before 2008. And I thought, well, you know what? Let's borrow that for a minute. And I put this in the PCI slot. Same exact thing. Completely different drivers, completely different manufacturer, completely different interface, same exact behavior. And so I am absolutely beside myself in frustration in that you can say, look, I've been in this business for 27 years, whatever it's been, and I cannot explain this. Peter Stevenson's contributed 10 pounds. Thank you, Peter. Does the network work in a Linux live CD? I don't know. I don't use Linux. It wouldn't help the customer at all. But clearly, this is not an operating system issue. Like I said, I built 5 of these computers. And there are 2 others with Wi-Fi cards. And they all work perfectly. I'm just adding another Wi-Fi card. Nothing else is different. So we're going to check this one more time. So we're going to try and load the driver again for the Wi-Fi card. We'll go back under Device Manager. Again, I'll try loading it by hand, manually. Network controller, driver, update, browse, optical drive. That's the card. Driver files, Windows 7 64-bit. Click OK, click Next. It says, yes, these are the right drivers for this device. I'm going to load them. If they were the wrong drivers, it would tell me. It wouldn't even try to install these. Windows would say these aren't the right drivers. Screen goes blank. Look at that. What do you make of that? Explain to me how that's possible. Jakey Pierce has contributed £5. I wonder if the driver works in safe mode. Carrie, have you tried Snappy Driver Installer? Yes. I have tried 3 different network cards made by 3 different manufacturers that are completely unrelated with how they develop their drivers. And the result is the same. There are no Windows updates. This is a clean install of Windows 7. The customer that, when I experience this, has the latest, all the updates on Windows 7, all the drivers, all the updates, same exact behavior. Have you tried a video card to see if it would work in any of the slots? I have not tried a video card. We could certainly plug a video card into it and see what happens. Let's flip the switch. Come on, Brian, Brytech09, you're my man. You gotta go, oh, you know, Mike, your problem with that is, I'm sorry, it's a bad accent. The problem with that is, it's just a bunch of faff. I don't know. Let me see if I can find a video card we can slap in there. I'm sure I've got a test PCI Express card we can use somewhere in my pile of parts. Oh, here's an old card, but it'll do the job. This will work. I was looking all over for my drill bits and I finally found them. They've been here all this whole time. Wow. Well, there's a problem I don't have anymore. Just pulling my hair out looking for those drill bits. All right, so here we've got just an old MSI. This thing's ancient, but it's PCI Express. It'll do what we need it to do. And power's off. Make sure we're drained. I always hit the power button. Make sure we drain out any external power that might be residing in the caps. We're going to pop this out. I'll pop this one in. And then we'll plug the monitor into it. You know what? Let me secure it. It's wiggling around all in there. Flip the switch back on, turn it back on. Let's see what happens now. Somebody contributed some funds that I've missed again. If somebody could let me know, I'd like to give those generous folks a shout out. Got Fuel contributed $10. Thank you, Got Fuel. And someone contributed 20. Who contributed the 20? Oh, it was Nick. We already said Nick, right? Nick Fail. All right. So again, thanks to Got Fuel and Nick there for your contributions to the channel. I really appreciate that. It's very kind of you. Well, you can see the graphics card's working. Let's see what happens now. Oh, it's going to load the driver software. I'm guessing for the graphics card. Let's see. It's loading PCI to PCI bridge. It's a Radeon X300. That's an old card. Restart required. Yeah, let's restart it. Radeon X300, bring on Overwatch. Don Bev has contributed $2. Thank you, Don. That's just a VGA connector. Doesn't make a difference. Can it play Crysis? Maybe. Can it play Zork? Definitely can play Zork. Definitely. It could play Zork 1, 2, and 3 at the same time. Wow, resolution really shrunk down, didn't it? So obviously it loaded the driver okay. Let's go back and look at the status of the Wi-Fi card. Device manager. Still a yellow exclamation point, so let's uninstall the driver. So what I do is I click uninstall, and then I check the box to delete the driver software for the device. So it wipes the software entirely. And then we're going to restart the computer. And then we'll try loading the driver and we'll see what happens. I suspect it's going to be even more interesting. I probably should get a fire extinguisher out. Eric has contributed $2 Canadian. Thank you, Eric. Place your bets, place your bets. Is it going to work? Is it going to make any difference whatsoever? No matter what driver, no matter what kind of network card, the system always crashes or the driver simply won't start. Other identical systems, same hardware, same software, works just fine. Something very unique about what's going on here. All right, here we go. Let's see what happens. Brian, Brightech got awful quiet. What's going on, Brian? Did you leave? You get scared? Come on, buddy. All right, let's go to computer, properties, device manager. There we go. There's a network controller. It's unidentified. It just says network controller. Once again, we're going to go to there, go to driver, update driver, browse my computer for the driver software. We're going to browse to the optical drive. The driver doesn't matter if I'm using Snappy Driver Installer. It doesn't matter if I download a newer driver. The behavior is exactly the same. It doesn't matter if I use a different network card from a different manufacturer that obviously uses a different driver written by different people. The same behavior exists. So we know it's not a driver-related issue. There's something going on with the hardware of this machine with regards to either the CPU or the motherboard. So now we've got a graphics card in, the screen has gone blank, and now we have a different stop error, which I can't read. It's gone by too quickly. Windows 7 is no longer supported for a reason. No, Windows 7 is still supported until January of 2020. I'm sorry that you have false information, but you can verify that. But don't let that stop you from spreading false information. Knowledge pollution, that's all that is. All right, we're going to start Windows, and we're going to see if I can I'm going to disable automatic restart, so when we see that blue screen, it'll stay there. It mentioned a file, a .sys file, but it was too quick for me to read it. So I'm going to do two things now when the system comes up. We're going to remove the driver again, and I'm going to turn off automatic restart. So let's go turn off automatic restart. We'll go to Properties. We'll go to Advanced System Settings, and then hit the Settings button. Automatic restart is unchecked. Click OK, click OK. Device Manager. Go to the network card, driver, uninstall, delete the files, click OK. Close, close, restart. $2 from Ronald Nimcheski donated. Thank you, Bud, for letting me know that. Of course, thank you, Ronald Nimcheski, for your contribution to the channel. The CPU does not work well with the adapter. Well, it hasn't worked well with any adapter from any manufacturer in any slot. Whereas the same board, remember I built 5 of these computers at the same time. At least 2 others have Wi-Fi cards. None of them exhibit this problem. Exact same hardware, exact same software. The only difference is this one is not like the others for some unknown reason. So that tells me it's got a bad motherboard or a bad CPU. So let's go to Device Manager again. One more time, let's load that driver. This time when I get the blue screen, it'll stay. It won't automatically shut down. Let's do it again. And just so you know, like if I try to install the Windows 8 driver and I hit next, it's not going to allow it. It's just going to say this is not the right driver. So I'm definitely, I am picking the right driver. I've used Snappy Driver Installer. I've gone to the manufacturer's website. I've downloaded the latest driver. Even when I tried to load the hardwire driver for the Realtek with the Wi-Fi card installed, it crashed the system just like that. So let's see, update driver, browse. Windows 7 64-bit. Next. All right, here we go. So whether I use onboard video, oh, it installed it. It installed it. So now I'm gonna test it. I want to see if I can see my network. I don't know why it's taking so long. A list of Wi-Fi networks should appear, and it's not happening. This should have already come up, and we're just sitting here. I mean, if this driver truly did load properly, I should see a list of available networks. Whoops, I'm hitting my menu buttons, I'm sorry, on the screen. And there's just nothing there. So let's reboot it. With the driver installed, it says the driver is working. If we look in the device, well, I can't even do that now. Everything's frozen. The mouse is moving, but I can't. Oh, wait a minute. Screen just went black. We have a stop F4. There we go. You'll see the behavior is not exactly the same. Even though the hardware we're using is still the same, the behavior keeps changing. It's inconsistent. John Rice has contributed $20. Thank you for your contribution, John. Kerry, have you tried with a USB Wi-Fi dongle? It won't matter. That's not going to be a solution for this customer. In other words, whatever is causing this problem, this is a mission critical machine. It needs to be reliable. It needs to be fast. It needs to be virus free. It needs to be able to get the work done that the employee needs to get done. This isn't just any employee. This is the boss who cuts all the checks, the payroll, all the timesheets. Everything goes through this computer. So if a USB Wi-Fi dongle worked, that doesn't mean the customer's not going to call me up tomorrow or next week or next month that there's another problem. This may just be the start of something bigger. When I deliver a computer back to a customer, I have accountability and liability on the work that I charge for. So I need to make sure, to the best of my ability, that when I deliver a machine back, that the customer is not going to call me back to have me fix it again, because one, it really upsets the customer. Two, I can't charge them for a warranty repair. I lose money. Three, I repeat a job I already did. So it's not like I'm just fixing a computer on the side for a friend. This is a business and things have to be done perfectly. Anything less than that, you're not going to be able to sustain a business. Customers don't have patience for that. You might be able to get a customer to wait a day or two more for the repair, but when you deliver it, it better work. That's all I'm saying. So this kind of behavior it's inexplainable. There's clearly something wrong with the motherboard or CPU. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to shut this down. We know that, as I already said, I've taken the memory out of it. I've rotated the memory around. I've tested it. It all tests fine. I've updated the BIOS. It's made no difference. There are 4 other computers just like this. None of them have any of these problems. 2 of them have Wi-Fi cards. No Wi-Fi card is working on this at all. I'm going to go ahead and just pull the motherboard out, and we're going to test it outside of the case. You know, the motherboard has to come out anyway. So let's just go ahead and take it out now and see if the behavior is the same outside of the case. I imagine it will be. So I'm going to just set the hard drive over here for a moment, and we're going to unplug, and we're going to take the Wi-Fi card out. Whoops. Take the Wi-Fi card out here. There we go. Set the Wi-Fi card there. And let's unplug USB 3. Let's unplug, well, this is in the way. I'm going to have to take this out. This is the hard drive tray. It's got the old OCZ drive in there. Nothing wrong with it. It's just old. I'd like to replace it since, go M.2. Now I should be able to reach my hands in here and pull that power cord off of there. And then the CPU power up. Where is it? Oh, it's down here. Everything's upside down on this case. And we've got our SATA cables, one for the hard drive and one for the optical. I'm going to leave the hard drive one plugged in. Disconnect the optical. We've got a fan. We've got something USB up here. What is that? Oh, that's the card reader. And then this fan, this is a CPU fan, that stays on. This is front port audio, that can come off. And what is this? Oh, this is all front port switches and LEDs, so that can come off. All right. Let me go ahead and pull the board out. You see how easy that was? There's not much to this computer. Like I said, it's comprised of only 7 parts. That's why building a computer today is so much easier, and why I talk about, encouraging everybody to build one themselves. It's not like a 500-piece puzzle. It's a 7-piece puzzle, and not much of a puzzle at that. I'm just disconnecting I'm removing the screws that secure the motherboard into position. Motherboard's got to come out anyway. One last screw up here, and then it should just... There we go. right. So here's the board in all of its glory. Nothing visually that I can see wrong with it. It looks just fine. Like I said, customer had no complaints. You can see the make and model of the board there. Especially if I turn it the other way around, it might be a little easier for you. RAM is Team Extreme. Again, same RAM that's in the other systems. It's fully compatible, working without any problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this case a little out of the way. Let me move my Coke and the case. And let's just do a very basic test, and that's going to be simply hooking the hard drive back up with the SATA cable. And I'm going to go grab a power supply and a power switch. Let's plug the monitor in. And I need the keyboard and mouse dongle off the front port USB because obviously that's not hooked up anymore. We'll plug that directly onto the motherboard. And I'm going to leave, let's plug the Wi-Fi card back in. Let's plug that in where it was, which is right here. There we go. And now I need a power supply and a power switch. Power supply, I've got around here somewhere. There's one. And a power switch I should have. There we go. All right, so power supply. Main power to the board. Right there. CPU power. Right to here. This is an 8-pin CPU power. There we go. And then I need the power switch hooked up, so that'll go, should be right about these 2 pins right there. That should be it. We should be, oh, I have to put power to the hard drive. Let's do that. Okay. Monitor's still on. Let me move the keyboard and mouse a little bit out of the way. And let's hit the switch. Oh, I have to plug the power supply. You have to give power to the power supply, everybody. Come on now. In such a hurry. All right, hit the switch. Fan is turning. All right, let's see what happens here. Start Windows normally, that's fine. All right, here we go. Desktop's coming up. Now remember, whoa, look at this. Didn't get too far. I want you to keep in mind now we've got the system, we've got the motherboard and the CPU out of the case. I want you to keep in mind we've used different brands of Wi-Fi in different slots, and we've switched memory, and we've now switched power supplies, and we've tried an onboard graphics card, and we've updated the BIOS. Keep in mind that there are 4 other identical systems built exactly the same hardware, 2 of which have Wi-Fi cards, none of which experience this problem. Now, what do you guys think it is? Clearly it's not a graphics card problem because we've installed another graphics card and we exhibit the same behavior. Missed a couple of donations, Carrie. Michael McAllister donated $5 and Wahoo Brew donated $20. Thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate your contributions to the channel. Try one stick of RAM. Already tried one stick of RAM, then tried the other stick of RAM and ran memtest 86 on the board, and it flies without any problems. And in fact, oh, look at that. It booted. Well, I've been talking, it booted. I wasn't paying attention. But I've got no icons, I've got no taskbar. Not sure what's happening there. Let's cut power. It's booted again. Start Windows normally. There's absolutely no changes I want to make in the BIOS because, as I mentioned, there are 4 other identical systems. The BIOS reset back to default values when I updated it, so I had to change some things back. I don't think I changed everything back. I just changed minimal things like temperature warnings. Here we're getting a stop F4 error, but it's not giving me the name of a file. You can see that on the screen there. And again, without any Wi-Fi card, this machine was running fine on the hardwire LAN for years and years and years. However, I also don't know if this is a problem that occurred during the move. I don't know if somebody drop kicked the computer. I mean, it shouldn't have harmed it. There's no moving parts on this computer. It runs off of a solid state drive normally. I just have the mechanical drive hooked up for testing purposes. If I remove the Wi-Fi card, it works and boots just fine. If I add any Wi-Fi card, PCI or PCI Express, using any driver designed for that card, regardless of the version of the driver, this is the behavior that it exhibits. So, what I'm going to do now, because I have nothing to lose, I didn't want to do this before I talk to the customer, because if I screw up and if the customer needs the machine back in any condition, you just don't want to mess with it much when it's this critical to a business. But since I know I have parts coming, let's go ahead and try reseating the CPU, or just inspect the socket. Let's make sure that everything looks good under there. I have seen CPUs back in the day that when they used to use pins on the Intels, where pins were missing and it had no impact on the computer that anybody experienced. It doesn't mean that it didn't have any impact. It just meant the way the customer was using the machine, didn't make any difference to them. So let's see if we can. These towers rotated here. There we go. There's 1, 2. Come on. That one's not coming up. And that one's not coming up for some reason. Tell you what, let me get this out of my way. Let me get this RAM out of my way too. Let's just take it all out. I've already taken it out once. Let's just take it out again. Set the RAM down over here. Now I can get my hand fully back here. There we go. Now it came up. Well, that was one that was already up. Plug this video cable. Sometimes it helps to get a flat edge screwdriver just to make sure those little towers are turned all the way. Does not want to come up. Wow. I wasn't messing around when I built this one, was I? Okay, there's one. One more to go. I need to get something under there to lift that up. That feels, something just loosened up. Okay. There's our CPU fan. Let's pull the CPU out of there. Get that out of the way. All the pins in the socket look perfect. There's our CPU. I'm not going to wipe the thermal compound off of it. I'm just going to put the same heatsink back on it again. All I want to do is reseat it. Then I need to set these little towers back to the opposite direction of the arrow. And we're going to pop that right back on like it was. Check that all four are coming all the way through, and they are. Plug the fan back in. Plug the memory back in. Plug the 8-pin CPU power connector back on. Plug video back in. Plug the Wi-Fi card back in. Hit the switch on the power supply. Power on the motherboard. Let's see what happens. Start Windows normally. I'm getting a green light on the Wi-Fi card. I don't know if that was happening before or not. Nope. There will not be anything in the event logger. You guys referring to the event logger would assume that Windows in a crash state could write an event. It cannot write an event to the event logger in a crash before Windows is even booted. you will see perhaps the last few things that loaded, but you're not going to see whatever caused the error. So unfortunately, the event logger isn't going to help us in a situation like this. When you have normal blue screens, things where the computer has time to write events, that's fine. But in a complete crash like this, the computer's unable to write anything. So all you're going to see are the successes, not the failure. So yeah, that's it. That's all there is to it. There's something wrong either with the CPU or with the motherboard. I've got a new CPU board and RAM and an M.2 drive coming sometime today. That's going to go back in that case. And then that way the customer's data and everything will still be there. We'll just have to reactivate Windows. And there's a few, I think Microsoft Office has to be reactivated. Quicken will have to be reactivated. But at least all the data, all the icons. For regular customers, this is really critical that they have their same icons on the desktop. Some people even if the icons aren't in the right place, they can't find them. This customer's not like that, thank goodness. Looks like Alberto Gorin has contributed £5. Thank you. Or is it pounds? No, that's not pounds. That's I'm not sure what that symbol is. Try to place the Wi-Fi in the PCIe 16X slot. Already did. Oh, that's euros. I should know that. €5. Thank you, Alberto, for that. All right, anyway, yeah, it doesn't matter which slot I use. It doesn't matter which Wi-Fi card I use. It doesn't matter different manufacturers. The only thing that is consistent is the driver for networking causes the machine to crash. So I'm not sure why, other than something's hosed. Now, it certainly wouldn't hurt to pull this battery out and check it. Let me get my battery tester out. Typically on a bad BIOS, the system won't hold the date or time. It'll always want you to press F1 when you boot up and say that you've got a new CPU or that kind of message. On some mass computers like Dell's and HP's, sometimes the computer won't even turn on with a bad battery. With systems like this, a bad battery typically is just an annoyance. It doesn't really result in a system not being able to boot or to crash because you're loading a network card driver. But it doesn't hurt to check the battery while we're in here anyway. So let's pop that out. Let's just put it on the meter. See what the meter says. If I can hold it steady. Meter says the battery's good. We got no problem with the battery. We can short the BIOS out, the CMOS, we can clear it, although we already did that when we updated to the latest BIOS. And again, same motherboard, same hardware as identical other systems. This is the only one that's having this problem. The other systems continue to work fine, 2 of which have Wi-Fi cards without any problem. Everything is literally software and hardware precisely the same among all the systems. Only this one is exhibiting this behavior. So there's something different about this system that the other 4, compared to the other 4. And I'm sure there's a BIOS short jumper on here somewhere. I'm going to have to get my little cheaters out so I can read the fine print on the board to see where it is. I mean, at this point, we can't hurt anything. We're certainly not going to make it any worse. So you don't have to be fearful as long as we've got the customer's data protected, which we do. There's a clear CMOS. There's no jumper on it, so I just have to do it by hand, I guess. So we'll just short that out. Count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Put the battery back in. And we'll flip the switch on the power supply and hit the power on the motherboard. Let's see what she does. BIOS has been reset. Load optimize, defaults, and reboot. Won't change anything else, like I normally do. I like to turn on temperature warnings, things like that. I'm just gonna let it go to all the defaults. That's how confident I am that we're just gonna continue to see the same problems over and over again. Press yes when it's properly displayed. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. I really don't like this graphical BIOS. Start Windows normally. I feel like this whole exercise is pointless, but I am humoring the folks in the chat room who are throwing darts blindly at a wall, because you never know. You never know. You have to test everything. I'm just pretty confident you're not going to be able to fix a bad motherboard by playing around in the BIOS and changing a battery. But why not? Could you try a different power supply? This is a different power supply. The power supply we were using was in this system. This is a different power supply. The one we were using is still in the case. So we've tried two different power supplies. Clean install of Windows 7 versus a Windows 7 install that's 3 or 4 years old with all the updates, all the drivers. We've got move the RAM around. We've tried different Wi-Fi cards in different slots, PCI Express and PCI, D-Link versus TP-Link, different drivers from different sources, and we continue to see the exact same behavior. I do not have a spare CPU this modern, nor do I have a motherboard of that. You know, they're trying to think what generation chip that is. It's got to be like a 4th gen, 4th or 5th. It's 4 years old, so it's just too new for me to have those parts laying around, because people aren't upgrading those yet. They're still very viable machines today. In fact, there was no discussion of upgrading this machine because the customer was happy with its performance and its operation. But trying to do something that should have been an in and out job of just slapping a Wi-Fi card in and leaving has turned into all of this. Pretty much every single component has been changed, swapped around, or moved, and every possible driver has been tried, and but there's been multiple manufacturers of Wi-Fi card in different slots. All exhibits the exact same behavior. The only two things that remain a constant and unchanged is the motherboard and the CPU. Those are the only two things that have not been swapped out. There are 4 other identical systems, all with the same hardware, same software. They all work perfectly well, no problems. 2 of those 4 have Wi-Fi cards. They operate with no problem. So this computer is exactly the same in hardware and software, and yet its behavior is completely different. And the only 2 parts we've not swapped out, some people are wondering why I keep repeating myself. People are just now joining us for the first time. This is a live broadcast. They cannot go back to see what they've missed. It's almost like when you watch radio or TV, they often, on the radio, they'll keep re-announcing, you know, you're listening to this station and today we're interviewing this person, and you know, they have to keep reminding the audience just tuning in of what's going on. And so when you do a live broadcast, you got to just keep in mind people are jumping in right in the middle. People are jumping in right now and they're like, what's going on? What have I missed? So a lot of the comments in the chat is stuff we've already handled. And I'm just trying to find a balance there so that people have a clue what's going on. But there it is. That absolutely has pretty much run out of things to test. There's really nothing more to swap out on this board. I don't know if it's the board or the CPU. I very rarely ever see bad CPUs, but this behavior could be CPU related. I think it's chipset related. The chipset's part of the motherboard, and I think some part of the chipset is damaged. However, the chipset is a critical component of the interconnect of the CPU and the inherent operation of the CPU. And so it is possible, is just as likely from a theoretical standpoint, that the issue could be caused by the CPU. Statistically, from my personal experience, I've only seen the number of bad CPUs I've seen in all my years, I can count on one hand. Bad motherboards, I couldn't even count how many of them. There's just way too many to count. I'm going to guess it's a bad motherboard, but you can't buy these boards anymore. Or if you do, there's so much money. It's supply and demand. They don't make them. So anybody who's got one's going to charge top dollar for it. It's not going to have any warranty, and there's no guarantee it's going to fix the problem if it's a bad CPU. So by the time you wait to order the motherboard, pay the exorbitant fee for it, plug it in only to find out the CPU is bad, now you're in it, right? Now you got to go buy the CPU. You're right back to buying a used CPU with no warranty, questionable source. You got to take the person's word who sent it to you that it's working. If you get it and it's not working, they're going to say it worked when I sent it to you. You must have broken it. So it's much better to buy brand new parts when you're running a business that you are held accountable for, that you are charging a customer for, that you have liability and responsibility for those parts, that you don't try and cut corners and use duct tape and MacGyver it. You've got to do it right. And unfortunately, it's going to cost the customer a bit more. However, the motherboard I ordered for this customer is it's a Gigabyte, I think it's a GA-B250M, and it's on sale at both Newegg and Amazon today for $39.99. It's a B250, right? So that means it uses a 6th generation CPU, which is great. $39.99. It's normally $69.99. But today and for the next 3 days, Amazon and Newegg are selling that GA B250M. I can't think of what the last 3 letters are. I can get the info if you're interested. For $39.99. So then we just add the CPU, we add the RAM, we throw an M.2. We use the same CPU, we use the same case, same optical drive. Everything's the same. We just plug it in. System's going to boot from the hard drive that has Windows 7 and all the customer software on it. Some of the software will need to be reactivated. There may be a couple drivers we have to throw on. Problem solved. Everything's under warranty again. And not only did we fix the system, but we've upgraded it and made it better than it was. So customers should be good for another few years, right? B250 is 7th gen. So what am I thinking? So what are we up to, 8th gen now? Because that would be a 300 series. This is a 200 series chipset motherboard for $39.99. It's crazy. And it's micro ATX. So there it is. That's one job done. Let me clear the counter and I can set up for the next thing. Excuse me guys, just a moment. Okay, so sorry, 7th gen. I was thinking 7th was the latest one. It's 8th gen is the latest one. Thank you for the corrections in the chat. 7th gen motherboard, 250 chipset, $39.99. That's a great deal. It's a micro ATX board. Customer got lucky that the board is basically half price. I don't know why. I wish I had the money to just buy a bunch of them and sell them at a profit, because if I sold them for $60 when the price goes back to $69.99, I could make a nice little profit on that. But again, I got to collect sales tax. I got to do the paperwork for the government every 3 months. So to make $20 or $30, it's not worth it for all that extra work. I don't sell parts. Customers buy their parts wherever they want to buy the parts. I'll recommend places if most customers don't know where to buy parts. So I'll say, I suggest Newegg or Amazon. Order it through your own account so the parts are in your name, the warranty's in your name, any rebates are available to you. And that way, if anything happens to me, you're still covered, Always looking out for my customers first. All right, so I'll put this power supply away. We are done with that. That can go there. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do, I've only got about 20 minutes before my pest control guy is going to come over, and he's got to spray this whole place down. And I can't be broadcasting to you while that happens. And I don't think he wants to be a YouTube star. I've got to tear all this down. I don't think you guys need to watch me tear all this down. Set the next machine up and get it ready. So I think what I'll do is we'll go ahead and end this live stream for now. I'll come back in about an hour, and I hope you guys will come back too. And we'll do the next job. Now the next job is an upgrade. We're going to be taking, if you remember that Alienware desktop, that customer wants a solid state drive because the drive is in a caution state according to Crystal Disk Info. So I've got a 500 gig Samsung SSD 2.5-inch drive, and we're going to have to do the cloning the software from the original mechanical drive to the SSD. And then once that's done, it's just a matter of installing it and buttoning it up. It should be pretty straightforward. And hopefully, between now and then, the parts for this machine will show up at my door, and then we can finish that as well. So let's take a break. Everybody can get something to eat, get something to drink, so that when we come back in about an hour, we'll all be ready to continue where we left off. So that's going to wrap up this particular broadcast. Remember, I will be back in approximately 1 hour. I hope you'll come back too, and I will see you very soon. Bye for now.